Welcome to the U.S. Kiss Vinyl Reference YouTube channel. Please like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Alright folks, welcome to another installment of the U.S. Kiss Vinyl Reference. I am your host, Mike Stone, as always. And this episode, we are finishing up the solo albums with Paul Stanley, ladies and gentlemen. So, Paul's solo album is right up there, neck and neck with Ace for my favorite solo album. Definitely the most Kiss-sounding solo album of the four. Not a whole lot of variation here to talk about between the LP and the 45, so this episode probably won't take too long. So, if you've got a minute to watch, go ahead and find you a spot on the couch and let's go through the variations of Paul's solo album. Alright, welcome back to another episode of the U.S. Kiss Vinyl Reference. So, as I said, today we are talking about Paul Stanley's solo album, and it is the last of the four solo albums. So, that's a kind of four chapters in one, I guess, because I'm going to drop all four on the same day, just as the record was dropped on a September day back in 1978. See what I did there? So, as I've mentioned in the other episodes, all four released on the same day, September 18th, 1978. All of them shipped 1.25 million apiece to record stores on release day. So that's a bunch of records. So stores were flooded with solo albums. Didn't quite translate to sales, but they all sold pretty good. But they didn't sell out by any means, if selling out was even a thing back then. But anyway, as I mentioned also, Paul and Ace are my two favorite solo records. Paul is definitely the most Kiss-like of the four solo albums. That's just because Paul writes a lot of Kiss songs. Go figure. So, we'll go ahead and get started with the variations, even though there are not many. There's a couple of rare ones in here, but nothing earth-moving by any means. But as we always do, we're going to start off with promotional copies. And Paul has kind of a unique feature among the solo albums when it comes to promotional copies. He has one that is a cut corner, as you can see by the cut corner here. Alright. Now, also, I want to point out, along with this cut corner, notice that his neckline fades a little bit. We'll touch on that here in a minute. So, as with all the solo albums, comes with a inner sleeve, custom inner sleeve. And if I can pull the stupid thing out. Good Lord, I've got greasy fingers or what? I don't have greasy fingers. So, merchandise order form. I've showed, this is all four of them now. This one is unfolded and it does not have an envelope attached. Never had one, as you can see in the pictures here, both sides. And then I will throw up an image here of the version that was folded and had an envelope attached. So you can see that there's variations for the order forms on all 4 members. Alright, and then we have a poster. So there is Paul's poster. And as we all know, they interlock together and form a giant mural, which you'll see right there. And those inserts are the same for the promotional copy and retail copies. Get that thing back in there. Alright. So now I showed you the mark on the jacket, which is just a cut corner. And now I'm going to show you the mark on the label. So there is the custom Paul Stanley label there. Notice on the left hand side it says promotional copy, not for sale. So there is your promotional label. And that is a promotional copy for Paul's solo album. And as you could probably guess, or if you're watching this, you probably know, there are variations to Paul's solo album. So I'm going to set this one aside for the moment. And I'm going to pull out another variation. And now we have a gold stamp on the back. Excuse me. Alright, apologies for that. I had a phone call. So I was saying that this version of Paul's solo album has a gold stamp on the jacket, as you can see. And then I am going to train your eyes to the neckline here. And notice that it's pointed compared to this one fading out. So there is a correlation here. Every copy that I've seen with this gold stamp has had a pointed neckline. Every promotional copy that I've seen with this cut corner has had a faded neckline. I've never seen a faded neckline with a gold stamp before. So, other than that, the inserts and the label look the same. Though I will point out on my pointed neck variant that if you feel the label, it feels textured. When I got my very first copy with the gold stamp, I thought this label was water damaged. But I've held a few copies in my hand now, and all of them have had this textured feel to the label. So I believe that is the way it's supposed to be. So, yep, pointed neck, I've only ever seen with a gold stamp. And the faded neckline, I've never seen with a gold stamp. So there is Paul's promotional copy. And making sure I get these back in the right bag. And I've also noticed on the back that the pointed neck usually has a bit darker purple to the text. But I mean, that could be any kind of variable. You know, one could have been out in the sun a little longer than the other, but it's not going to show up on the camera. But I think I'm pretty sure I've got images of both jackets that I could fly up here, but whether my scanner picks up on it or not, I don't know. So, that was promotional copies. Now we move on to retail copies. Now, sometimes you hear me say retail copies, sometimes you hear me say stock copies. I hope that I'm not causing any confusion there. They are the same thing. It depends on which one happens to roll off of my tongue at any given time. So if some of you might think that there's a difference between a retail copy and a stock copy, there's not. It's just two ways of saying the same thing, and I apologize if I've caused any confusion with that. So, on to the retail copies. Retail copies are pretty straightforward. So, you have a pointed neck variant with the same inserts and the same inner sleeve. And then you got a custom label there, Paul's face on it. And that is the only label variation that I've found for a first issue of Paul's solo album. The other three, I've shown labels where the member's face is not on the label. Paul has never been seen. So if one exists out there, nobody in the collectors groups that I frequented over the last almost 10 years now, nobody's ever showed one. So, and that's a first issue. Polygram reissues, those are well known to not have any faces on the label. Alright, we have another variation of a solo album, and this one, the neckline fades. That's literally the only variation. You know, it's got the same custom Paul label. This one, oddly enough, unlike the promo, does not feel textured. Same inserts, same inner sleeve, and keeping up with tradition on the solo albums, I'll pull out the folded merch form just to show that it exists. And that is your retail copies for the first issue. I have not found one jacket or the other being tougher to find, whether it's the faded neck or the pointed neck, in retail copies. The promo copies, the gold stamped promo seems to be pretty tough to find compared to the cut corner. Alright, next up is a Record Club issue. And this has the same custom Paul Stanley label that I showed. And it has a CRC sticker on the back. So that's your Columbia Record Club. No CRC on the label. As I've stated in a few other episodes, from the makeup era, there are only two labels that have CRC printed on them. And both of them are Destroyer. You got a Campbell label and a Filmworks label. So it's unfortunate, but it is how it is. This set of CRC solo albums is not quite easy to find, and I may have mentioned it in another solo episode, and I may not have, but I've only ever seen CRC solo albums with the sticker. I've never seen CRC printed on a jacket for the solo album, so. Alright. And then, as I've shown in the other 3 episodes, we have 2 different picture discs. We have the NB Pix and the NBLPP. All of your jackets will say NB Pix on the spine. There's not a NBLPP jacket. Alright. Then pulling out the disc, this is the NB Pix version, and as you can see, it's kind of yellowed a little bit. And then, oh, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Whoop, there goes my bag. And if I understand right, these picture discs came out a year or so later than the first release. Alright. Now the next picture disc is the NBLPP version, and this jacket also says NB Pix, and as you can see here, the picture disc looks quite a bit wider. So when you compare it to the NB Pix, and then I'll throw up an image here that shows both of them stacked on top of each other, and you can see where the catalog is on the disc, that they are different. So if you're looking to collect both sets, just remember that the NB Pix set is just a bit more yellowed. And as far as which one's tougher to find, I don't really know. But I will say that the NB Pix was the last set that I finished. And that could have been just a timing thing. So there's the 2 different picture discs from the US. And now we're moving up to a Polygram reissue. So we know of the issues with the printed barcode on the jacket, and this far in, we know that there was a series right before that now. We call it the Filmworks 2, and it was pressed between 1983 and 1984. So one of the hallmarks of the Filmworks 2 series is that printing plant number right there that is not focusing for some reason. There we go. It grabbed it for a second. That's that 501 right there. So that tells you where the jacket was printed if one had the information handy on the different printing plants. And then most of them came with a Filmworks inner sleeve, no custom sleeves. They did these on the cheap. Well, Rock and Roll Over had a custom sleeve, if you remember back to that episode, but that was a few episodes back. And then on the label, it does not have Paul's face, but instead of a Sunset Boulevard address, it now has a Polygram address for 7th Avenue in New York. So that's your hallmarks there for this Filmworks 2 set from 83 to 84. It's got to have a printing plant number on the back of the jacket, and then it's got to have a Polygram Filmworks label. Not all of the labels have a pressing plant number on it. This one did not. So and of that Filmworks 2 set from 83 to 84, it seems that the solos are the toughest to get. So, alright, moving on to the next Polygram reissue. This is a Filmworks 3. Has the printed UPC on the back of the jacket. That's not a sticker, which I failed to mention that though I've never seen it on Paul, I guess it could have a UPC sticker on the back. It could. I've never seen Paul, Gene, or never seen Paul, Ace, or Peter with a UPC sticker, but I have seen a Gene. So this Filmworks 3 series has just the cheap plastic inner sleeve that I always gripe about, but still decide to keep. And then a lot of them might come with that Sound Saver sticker on the shrink wrap. And then the label has that same Polygram address at the bottom. And then I'll point out to this one that right before the word manufactured on the left, you'll see a 53. So that's your pressing plant number. So there's your Filmworks 3 series. And the Filmworks 3 series, though it's not exactly, I mean, you're probably not just going to hop on eBay on any given day and get the whole series at once, but it's quite a bit easier to find than the 83-84 series, the Filmworks 2. Alright. And then we jump ahead a couple of decades to 2014. They released the Kisteria set, which reissued the whole catalog except for Sonic Boom. Solo albums were no exception here. These were not exclusive to the set, so you could have bought them in stores or with the box set. They came with the inner sleeve, which was recreated on some sturdier material. They also recreated the inserts for the 2014 set. So here's Paul's poster. Also printed on a bit sturdier material, or it feels sturdier. It's also not 40 some odd years old like the vintage posters are, so that could have a little bit to do with how it feels. And it was reissued on a custom label. Paul's face on the label, and you'll notice the Mercury logo down at the bottom. That helps you distinguish it from a vintage copy. And all of these 2014 reissues are on 180 gram vinyl for whatever that's worth to you. To me personally, I'm not 100% that kind of size difference makes a difference, to be honest. It's certainly a sturdier record. You know, you can't just sit there and flop it in the wind, but I mean, does it last longer? Who knows, you know. At this point, it's only 10 years old, so we still have 40-year-old original copies floating around, so take that for what it's worth. So, like I told you, there's not a whole lot of variation for Paul's record. So we got through his album pretty quick, and now we got a couple of 45s to talk about. So Paul released 145 off of his single. It was Hold Me, Touch Me, and Goodbye. Personal opinion, literally any other song off of the solo album could have been the A-side besides Hold Me, Touch Me, but it is what it is. I think that Move On or It's Alright, Wouldn't You Like to Know Me, probably Wouldn't You Like to Know Me would have been the best choice for a single, but he was trying to cater to the softer rock audience, I guess, with his single, but I digress. So, with the 45, we will start off with the promo. So, there it is on the Filmworks label. Notice up on the upper right, it says promotional copy, not for sale. So, there's your mono side. And there's your stereo side. And these mono stereos only have a couple of years left, and then they just go to promos where they're the same song on both sides, both stereo. So there's your promo. I only have one promo that I found. I haven't found a different one yet. So now we go on to retail copies, and like Ace and Peter before, Paul has one on a camel label, and I actually have this one. So there's your Hold Me, Touch Me side, and there's your Goodbye side. This one's fairly hard to find, but it can be found. Ace seems to be the easiest. And as I've mentioned, there are camel label copies for Strutter 78, Hold Me, Touch Me, Ace's Solo 45, and Peter's 45. And then there are camel label copies of Christine 16, but I believe that was like right at the transition. So now going to our other retail copy, we have a Filmworks label version. So there's the Hold Me, Touch Me side, and there's the Goodbye side. Alright. And I am going to point out, as I'm putting this back in, that my label says that this is larger text. So obviously, if I'm pointing that out, then that means I'm going to be showing a label with smaller text. So there's your hold me, touch me side. And then there's your goodbye side. And then you can't really look at one and tell which one that you got, unfortunately. So I'm going to throw up a picture here that shows both of them together, so you can kind of see. And even with that, you got to really look. So this might be just splitting hairs, I don't know, but I could tell a difference. So I consider it a variant. Alright, so that's all the original issues. And now we will skip ahead to the singles box set that came out in 2012. It reissued all of the singles from 74 to 82, which would be the makeup era. And then grabbed some picture sleeves from around the world to use, because the U.S. didn't have many picture sleeves on their 45s, unfortunately. So this picture sleeve came from the UK, and this little splash up here says free Paul Stanley mask inside, and down here it says limited edition in purple vinyl. And then there's the back of it. And this ain't like the picture sleeves of yesterday that were paper and flimsy. This is like almost like an LP jacket. So, and then as the splash pointed out on the cover that it came with a mask, here is the mask. So the original issue from the UK did not have this white background. It was just the mask cut out. So this is basically a poster for most of the people that went out and bought the set, because ain't nobody cutting that mask out. And then the vinyl, it got reissued on the Filmworks label. So there's your hold me, touch me side. And there's your goodbye side. And as you can see, it's on purple vinyl. You might be able to see that purple vinyl is translucent. So we have come to the end of Paul's solo album and the solo albums in general. And I said this wasn't going to be that long of an episode, so we made it through all 4 solo albums. So I thank you for hanging around with me and talking about this kind of stuff. And we will see you on the next one.